to do now is I'm going to share my screen, okay, with you all. And I feel it's important, you know, when you're starting off with your class 11 course, right? I'm sure you've gone through this English syllabus. I'm sure you can see the screen, right? Now, what is very important for you is there are certain changes that have taken place in your ICSE syllabus for English language, especially, and also as well as literature, because of the introduction of the project work. As a result of that, a few changes in the marking scheme has ensued, right? If you look at paper 1, the theory is still 80 marks. It used to be 100 till 2019 final exam. So now it's 80 marks. You have 20 marks for your composition, which you've been writing now for all your life, I guess. And then, of course, you have question 2, which is divided into 2 parts. 15 marks for the directed writing based on article and reviews, etc. We'll go into details later. And part 2 is proposal. That's for 10 marks. So that remains unchanged. Okay. Question 3 will be short answer questions to test your grammar. The is, I am actually, one second. I am going to share a screen with you. What I would like you, do you have your Tempest in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
I sort of assumed you would have started off with the Tempest, so I have planned a Tempest class. But what I'm going to do is, you keep the Tempest in front of you. Let us watch Act 1, Scene 1. How would you like that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, super. So, one second. Your screen sharing. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, is it visible? Clear? And you know what happens with this is it follows the text to the T. And I always believe a visual representation will help you to understand the scene more. Maybe I'm going to pause at times to talk to you and ask you a question here and there. All right? But just not to test your knowledge, just to see whether you think this is right or wrong, whatever. Are we ready?
Yes, miss.
Super. So let's start off. You remember we are on the ship, right? That's the most important part of the scene. We are on the ship, and that's the only time in this Shakespearean play that we have the mention of a ship and the Tempest, because though it lends its name to the play, it doesn't come in further. Only when you reach the end are you talking about the ship again. And right, so yet you see the play has been called the Tempest, and as we go through the scene and further, you might wonder, why did Shakespeare call it the Tempest? Why didn't he call it Prospero's Island? And why didn't he call it Ferdinand and Miranda? Why didn't he call it a romance? Why did he call it the Tempest? Those are the questions. You must keep it in mind. And I'll come back to that once we start watching it and in between, right? Here we go. Watch it. So you have some of the characters mentioned, but you see the action that's happening behind, sorry. You can see what's happening. The Tempest is already started. Remove 1 or 2 lines which might, which might contain a different kind of meaning which students do not know. They might remove it. So doesn't matter. The most of it is the part of the text, because here there was some of the curses where I think not included in your text. That doesn't matter. Now, if you see, do you find a distinct difference between the way Sebastian and Antonio address Bosun and the way Gonzalo does?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you do. Because then, what is your estimate then? If I just ask you on the basis of these lines, when you said, you insolent noisemaker, Sebastian says, a plague on your throat, blasphemous, uncharitable dog. How will you establish them immediately? 1 word or a sentence. What would you say?
Sebastian uses his vocabulary is more. He uses a lot of curses.
Yes.
I mean, he has like a superior air,
Yes, definitely, definitely.
but Gonzalo knows
Yeah.
um what's happening.
Yeah. So, like I said, Sebastian and Antonio, both of them are just abusive all through, right? And
Uh,
the class difference, like when you started off, you did mention. So the difference in the the hierarchy, the class difference is very evident in people like Sebastian and Antonio, and not so much as you see in Gonzalo, right? At least from
yes,
what we have spoken.
yes.
One very important point in this scene is Gonzalo is sort of comforting them. If I ask you this simple question, what ploy does Gonzalo use when he wants to show that don't worry, we are not going to sink? What is the ploy that he uses? What does he say? Suppose I ask
That
you, yes,
that the bosun doesn't have the mark of drowning, but the mark of gallows upon him.
yes. So he's also,
Yes.
see, very diplomatically, he tells Sebastian and Antonio, you're right. The bosun is insolent. The bosun is rude. He doesn't know how to talk to people belonging to the nobility. You're right about it. And that's why I believe that he has to be hanged. He cannot drown.
Yes.
So
Yes.
serving both purposes, right? He
Yes.
doesn't anger them. Yes, he doesn't anger them. Yet he also sort of consoles them. Said, "I'm absolutely certain that he has no drowning mark in him, and because of that, because of his insolence, he will be hanged, right?" And that hanging is taken up later. If you see, he keeps on saying all the time. If you turn to lines, I don't know what lines they are, when after minus 46, when Gonzalo says, "I'll warrant him for drowning, though the ship were no stronger than a nutshell." He says the ship is
And
so wobbly. It's like, one of those kernel that you can break open. But I still believe that I, that he will not drown. Yes, and then Antonio, of course, he says that we are less afraid to be drowned than thou art. So the bravado that Antonio is talking about is just bravado. It's just the words of a man who is pretending to be brave because he is nobility. So immediately he establishes the class difference. He says, we are less afraid to be drowned than thou art. But has the bosun ever mentioned that he's afraid of dying? He only said, I want to.
live more than you.
Yes, absolutely. So again, it tells you, just excuse. You said you did get a note. Did you get the note about what they used to do with pirates? Or, when did you get a note on the reference to the pirates here?
No,
Because,
ma'am.
no, you didn't. So, in those days, what used to happen is when pirates were caught and they were hanged, they were they were hung near the shore in such a way that each time the tide water used to come in, it would hit the body and cause more pain. They would be left to die. Got it? So
Hmm.
each time, and they expected, and here he said washing of 10 tides. But the original thing was by 3 tides, the body of the pirate would be submerged. So they would tantalizingly hang the pirate at the edge of the water, where each time the water of the tide would come and sort of try to pull him away while the rope would be hanging on to his throat. So the painful death that was given to the pirate. So here he's saying that not just 3 tides, but 10 tides. So we're going to make him suffer again and again, and that's what we want him to do. Got it?
Yes.
Would thou mightest lie drowning the washing of 10 tides. We should die a painful death. That is the reference here, yes? But Gonzalo keeps to that. He will be hanged yet, though every drop of water swear against it. Yes. He maintains that thing right through, that belief. Okay. And that's why the reference to the closing lines, now would I give 1,000 furlongs of sea for an acre of barren ground. Now we can only see, like when you see furlong, it's just a measure of unending sea, that water that we see in front. I would like to give it up for even a small piece of barren, infertile, useless land full of probably cacti and bushes and thorns. That would be better. Why? Because it would be firm. It would be firm. There would be no fear of me sinking. Yes, and the boat
Yeah.
sinking deep below and me drowning. So I would give it up for a small piece of land, any at this point in time. The wills above be done, but I would fain die a dry death. Whatever will happen will happen. Que sera, sera, right? The wills above. What is fate has in store for us will happen. But I would really wish that at least my fate is not to die drowning. I would prefer to die on firm land.
Drive edit thing. It
Oh,
took a
okay.
while to understand.
Yes. All right. I will just find out from people here as to how I'm going to go about getting those stuff from you about essays. But then I then would also want to start with essays, because my goal is by the end of, class 11, you should know, you yourself should understand whether you're good at writing descriptive, narrative, argumentative, story, or the single word. I'm going to introduce you to the different forms of essays, probably. Yes. So we
Yes.
give about 15 minutes to Tempest next class, and then I will move on to essays. That sounds fine by you?
Yes, miss.
I always like to plan for the next class because that works better. So we'll
Yes.
do 15 minutes work on Act 1, Scene 1. If you have any questions, I'll give you a few pointers that you need to put down. And then we'll go about dissecting the different forms of essay. And we'll do that. I know a few tricks that we can do verbally, and then we'll see about the written part of it. Sounds good?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So put in a feedback as to whether you think it's fine or not, if there are any changes that you would like me to work on. It's just the beginning. Yeah, don't make any changes now. Yeah.
No.
Right. So you stay safe. Look after
Yes,
yourself.
miss. You
Where
too.
do you stay? In Calcutta.
I stay in Alipur.
Alipur. All right. Stay safe. Don't roam about at all. Yes. Okay.
Yes.